What happened to Sri Lanka?
On the 21st of April, then-President Gotabaya Rajapaksa released a gazette abruptly banning the importation of chemical fertilizers to Sri Lanka. This resulted in the destruction of cultivations of paddy, tea, vegetables and decorative flowers, as well as the sudden spike of prices. It did not require an academic to deem this decision a destructive one. Even the farmers of this country, who dealt with nature and cultivations all their lives, knew that this decision would only lead the country into an abyss. The Gotabaya Rajapaksa administration claimed that the ban on the importation of chemical fertilizers would save dollars. This leads to the real question: did the government save any dollars through this? Or, by allowing the black market to flourish under this crisis, did the government lose the dollars it already had? Let's dive in. The then government, led by Gotabaya Rajapaksa, following the new ban on chemical fertilizer, decided to import organic fertilizer from China. The vessel carrying the stock of organic fertilizer that had been ordered departed China even before the quarantine certificate for export was issued. However, the shocking discovery of harmful bacterial components in the fertilizer samples gave rise to a brand new crisis. The Attorney General also said that instead of importing the stock of organic fertilizer in compliance with the existing laws, the concerned Chinese company and the government had bent the laws to suit the importation procedure. Although Sri Lankan farmlands did not get even a particle of this organic fertilizer, the country had paid $6.9 million to the Chinese vessel. How exactly did this scam take place? The Chinese company Qingdao Sewin Biotech Group stepped forward to provide Sri Lanka with organic fertilizer manufactured using seaweed. Although the company was given the tender, the National Plant Quarantine Service in 2 occasions confirmed that this fertilizer contained harmful bacterial components. However, disregarding this warning and without the approval of the National Plant Quarantine Service, the Hippo Spirit vessel reached Sri Lanka carrying 20,000 metric tons of organic fertilizer. Who granted approval for the opening for the letter of credit before the stock of fertilizer was checked is a question that is unanswered to this date. In order to give a quarantine certificate of export for the importation of fertilizer, the relevant company first needs to obtain clearance from the National Plant Quarantine Service. Later, the Chinese vessel changed its name, dropped off the radar of satellite navigation systems, and remained in the Sea of Sri Lanka for many days before departing the island. However, the Chinese vessel had not yet concluded its business. As per the agreement reached, we ended up paying $6.9 million to the Chinese vessel, and the Chinese company also took back the bond guarantee of $5 million deposited to the country. That's not all. They now say that they should be paid $8 million more for the loss that they incurred. As an alternative, they propose for a final decision on this transaction be reached. At a point where our dollar reserves were almost exhausted, we had to pay $6.9 million for a lost cause. In the end, we lost the dollars we had, and our country's agricultural sector also took a heavy blow. What happened afterwards? Our country then went on to purchase Indian-manufactured liquid nano-nitrogen fertilizer at a price much higher than the selling price in India itself. And did this solve the problem? No tender process was followed for the importation of liquid nano-nitrogen fertilizer from India. Then officers in charge of the Colombo Commercial Fertilizer Limited, which imported the fertilizer stock, claimed that there was no opportunity to carry out any study prior to the importation. They also said that this transaction took place with the intervention of one of the country's highest-ranked government officials. The Sri Lankan Cabinet of Ministers had initially granted approval for the relevant Indian company to directly carry out the transaction. However, the officials said that upon the intervention of this high-ranked government official, the decision had been reversed and the letters of credit were opened under the name of a local company. It was as per this change of plan that the letters of credit were opened under the name of the company named United Farmers Trust. Then officials of Commercial Fertilizers Limited also revealed that due to the company's lack of US dollars from the central bank's dollar reserves were deposited to an account of the company's owner. Then, the Sri Lankan Ministry of Agriculture ordered approximately 2.1 million litres of liquid nano-nitrogen fertilizer from the Indian Farmers Fertilizer Cooperative in Gujarat, India. The first stock was sent by air. 500 milliliters of this experimental liquid nano-nitrogen fertilizer was purchased at $12.45. According to the exchange rates at the time, that was about 2,520 rupees. However, in India, 500 milliliters was sold at $3.23, which was about 654 rupees. What happened in the end was that the Sri Lankan government ended up paying about 1,867 rupees extra for every 500 milliliter fertilizer purchased. When calculating the total amount of extra cost incurred using the quantity of fertilizer ordered, that was about 7.841 billion rupees at the time. And that's not all. The initiative suddenly implemented by the then government to promote the use of organic fertilizer was also heavy on fraud and corruption. The liquid organic fertilizer manufactured in a rush was substandard, and dogs would consume the crops to which fertilizer was sprayed. Farmers said that adding this fertilizer to their cultivations only posed an additional threat from dogs. Let's consider just one example for the frauds that took place when manufacturing the liquid organic fertilizer. It was reported that the cabinet had granted approval for 700 million rupees to be obtained from the Land Reform Commission to carry out a fertilizer program under a former minister in mid-2021. It was also reported that this project was proposed to be implemented island-wide, but initially 35 large-scale projects would be implemented within the North Central province. However, 1 year later it was announced that 2 billion rupees was taken from the Land Reform Commission instead of 700 million rupees, and that amount too had not been paid back. This is just one such fraud. What happened due to these frauds? The UN World Food Programme said that 5 million people in Sri Lanka skip meals and go to sleep in hunger. Food inflation continues to rise. The country declared bankruptcy. If the right decisions were taken at the time, we would not have faced this crisis in the first place. Those who made the wrong decisions and are accused of that are living luxurious lives, not facing any consequences. What steps were taken against them? As much as it is important to take action against those who led the country into this crisis, we should also keep in mind the lessons learned from the past when making decisions now and even in the future.
What happened to Sri Lanka?